Well, good morning, RESO. I know I speak for everybody on this stage when we say we're really, really excited to be kicking off the session with international opportunities. My name is Joe Schneider. I'm the EVP of Consulting for Modern.tech, and why I'm moderating this panel here is I've been working kind of in the global markets for the last 10 years, give or take. I ran NAR's international division, and I had the honor and pleasure of hosting last year's inaugural International MLS Forum. This is something, like I said, is near and dear to my heart. We've seen an uptick in interest from countries all over the world, bringing new technologies, bringing new ideas, and taking a more open-minded approach to building and developing these MLSs in their country. Why? Because they see the benefits. Greater consumer transparency, better broker-to-broker collaboration, and most importantly, a hotbed to bring more innovation into their markets. They're all very, very thirsty for that. So RESO has done an incredible job of kind of capturing that and working with each of those individual stakeholders to really ensure that if they're gonna take on these projects, that they're doing it in the right way, that there's a strong foundation to build off of. And all of us in this room know that a RESO standard is the easiest way to achieve all of these things. So hats off to RESO and everybody working on that. Let's jump into this right now. So we have three incredible speakers here. I'm gonna kick it over to them to introduce themselves. So Kathleen, please start.
Ni men hao. Hello, everyone. Washa, direct offer, da Kathleen Lappe, CEO. I'm Kathleen Lappe. I am the CEO of Direct Offer Incorporated. We're a software company that specializes in language translations and integrations with MLSs. This accentuates your listings and brings it forward and gives you more of an international exposure. Happy to be here, happy to support RESO as a member for many years now, and look forward to sharing my knowledge with you.
Great, thank you so much, Kathleen. Mathew.
Hi everyone, my name is Mathew. I work for Stellar MLS. I'm the VP of Technology and Innovation there. And I'm gonna add a little bit more color to my personality because I usually don't introduce myself like this, but I'm Austrian, and that's where my international, connection lies in. I worked in the UK for about 10 years, studied there, and worked in Japan for 2 years, and now I'm in Canada and live in Canada, so that's how I got involved, I guess, in the international space more so.
Great, thank you. Ali.
Yeah. This is Ali Attar. I'm CEO and co-founder of Realtyna. We established the company back in 2007 in Dubai, and then moved the company to US, Delaware, for sure, in 2000, I think back 2011, yeah. I have background, like Persian background. I'm a French citizen, and I'm here with you today to talk about our international opportunities.
Great, thank you all. So we saw the map that Sam had showed earlier with 20 RESO certified countries or organizations in those countries. Obviously the goal is to grow that, and how we do that is really kind of dependent on what the stakeholders in those countries want to do. And like I said, there's kind of a mind shift change of them wanting to take a proactive approach to updating their markets as a whole. But again, that starts with standards. So before we dive into that, let's kind of take a look at what those markets look like right now in an absence of standards. So Kathleen, your company does a lot of work with consumers. Walk us through what a typical transaction, and again, there's 200 something countries in the world, but as broadly as you can, what does that transaction look like from the consumer perspective?
So what's interesting when we talk about RESO and standardizing in the data library, and then we would like the world to embrace it. But even in the United States, every state behaves differently, like its own country. Mm-hmm. And when you're dealing with an international countries, every country is different, the way their culture is, their value, and then you can get into different regions of a country, and that sort of the way they behave and sell real estate is completely different. So overseas, you'll often find that agents will have what's called a living wage. A good example is in France, if you're from France. and they make a base pay, and then their commissions are much less. So you have to look at the way they treat their commission structure and how they conduct their business for that living wage. And then also you have to look at the way they communicate. In communicating to them where we have our standards. So look at where our similarities are. Okay, this is important. We can't shove down their throats our American way of doing things. We have to find the common threads between the way they do business and we do business. Now, when you start matching those, and we just start there, they're gonna guide us on what their needs are so we can do more business with them internationally. And that way, we actually grow as a company and as a brokerage, as an MLS in the United States, and we can gain more business, create more value, and increase our market share.
That's really great. One thing you touched on there is we cannot shove the US model down their throat. And my early days of NAR, and this is a safe space here, I remember going to a country and made a suggestion, and they said, look, we've been selling real estate longer than you've been a country. Get out of here, little boy, type of thing. So that's very, very true, and it does sour it very, very quickly. So great point. Ali, you are a vendor. You work in many, many different countries around the world.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that experience of having to build software and build these solutions when you have really the absence of standards, but having to build these custom products and platforms, do it over 60, 70 times for all the countries that you cover.
Actually, we sold listing software, standalone listing software in 96 different countries, like name it Africa, for sure Europe. And interestingly, they have similar pain points, like as we had before RESO. Like, for example, we had a client, and they wanted to simply syndicate listings from 5 different European countries, like a simple project, right? Yeah. One of these countries, they offered XML, like feed. The other one asked, like FTP, we have a raw FTP. The other one asked us to build a bot, browse their website, and then build some sort of feed for that syndication. So, and other formats as well, you can imagine it.
Yeah.
So basically, the pain points are similar. Like, I agree with you, Kathleen, about differences, but at the same time, they have the same pain points as we had before. So I always, about data dictionary, I always say that is like USB-C.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna solve the problem globally. Like RESO Web API is solving the problem as we speak, like globally. Egypt government invested $12 million. I think college people are here, they know about the project, to build MLS. Mm-hmm. Like something that we take for granted here, and we kick it like easily. Oh, okay, MLS, now let's see what we can sue. But they appreciate it. They understand that can solve their problems. So I can see that basically there's a huge opportunity when we are talking about global markets.
When we were on our prep call, you brought up that really good example you called the triple V. Can you go into some detail about that?
Yeah, for example, this triple V that, again, we take it here for granted, like visible, valid, and basically, forgot the third one. Visible, valid, and valuable. Yeah. Exactly. Like we have this term always. So like here we have visible, valid, and valuable properties like listings in the MLS, right? Always you have one V missing in other countries. Either it is not valid and it is visible and valuable, it means it's fake. A lot of portals, especially for example, you go to Middle East, you will see that they make millions of dollars or fake listings.
Yeah.
If you are dealing with a portal that's like offers potentially like valuable, but not visible, like listings.
Yeah.
you are talking about pocket listings. You don't have it here yet, that much. But pocket listing is a norm in Arabian countries. And always one VIM is missing, and that's a problem solved by MLS here, like long ago.
Yeah, that's a really good way to explain it. Mathew, Stellar's really kind of jumped into the international space in the last year, and before that with some other projects. Why and how are you jumping in?
I think, so with the Paris meeting, really we didn't go in with any expectations. We wanted to just go there and learn, really, and we did learn a lot. But then what followed after that was just an avalanche of various opportunities coming to us almost, right? So with the Paris meeting, really so kind of just talking about the market there itself, I think it is very different. Kathleen, both of you kind of alluded to this a lot. There is virtually no buyers, buy brokers, for example, buyers agents. So most of the deals are double-ended, for example. There is a strong desire that we noticed to establish something like an MLS. That desire was always there, I think, for a long time. But there are certain, I guess I feel like it's a post-COVID, past the boom type of flatlining economy that's now kind of driven the markets to like, hey, we need to look at some new ways of doing business, right? And kind of quoting something I heard from one of the executives there, who said, and it's quite funny if you think about it, she said, it's not great that the agents now have to settle for just one side of the transaction and that commission, but it's better than nothing. And so that's the sentiment that we get from there. So there's a more drive for us to kind of be of value, and they're looking for leadership and guidance on this. They're looking at us. So we think it's a great opportunity. There is low trust in the markets on the profession. I think a study recently said they're kind of second or third last in the trust scale, kind of just above taxi drivers and politicians and marketing executives. And kind of reverting back to language is absolutely the key. And now the two examples I have from this is, one is just out of Canada. I remember when I was working in Canada, a vendor would come and show us a new demo, and there's a point in the demo where they talk about addresses, and it says zip code, and that's the end of the demo for me, right? It should be postal code in Canada. And if we're, and Canadians are sensitive to that. So can you imagine, like in an entirely different language, what the sensitivity to that language is, right? And the second example I have is we're in a call with Germany, and we had, I can speak German, my colleague could speak German, there was another person who didn't speak German. So the polite thing to do is, okay, we'll speak in English, right? And especially Germany is not a big deal for them. Mm-hmm. But they literally started the conversation, so we're going to talk in German, right? And we're like, sure. And so the one person just had to be in the call for an hour and a bit, just not understanding anything. But that's the level of desire to be in that language, right?
Yeah.
So it's telling.
Really, really good input there. So that's kind of what the market looks like now. Let's move on to what that transition to more and more countries on the RESO standard looks like. Mathew, I'm going to stay with you. So representing organized real estate, what is that MLS? What is an MLS type of system? Because an MLS is not always going to fit in every market the way that we know it here. What's the future of an MLS, or how does an MLS fit in these international markets?
I think it's very challenging, frankly. I think we think of like establishing an MLS from scratch, like it was established in the US, where a bunch of brokers probably came around and said, hey, I'll help you and you help me and let's share our information, right? The difference is, though, that since then, there's many brokerage, like transaction management system in place, there's portals in place, and they all try to do some of the functions that an MLS is typically done, would do. And so you're fighting against that a little bit if you want to introduce something more cohesive and MLS-like. So I think that's the biggest challenge, so that you have resistance from other companies, really, for what it's worth. That's going to happen there. The other part is they have a huge opportunity there. They can just look at our markets here and say, this works for us, this doesn't work for us. And they can cherry pick kind of what helps. For example, data licenses, right? Or they could, in a given country, they could just have one MLS. That's really possible right now, right?
Yeah.
How amazing would that be, right? So again, between opportunities and challenges, there's a lot in between. And I think it's a long game to go into those markets.
That's an interesting point. You know, right now, as this idea kind of takes hold, who do you see kind of taking up that charge? Is it easier to build that national MLS first and then kind of build the local chapters around that? Or is it kind of a bottom-up approach and have local chapters that feed into a national?
It's a very interesting question. Honestly, it starts right now with just education for us, and that's what Stellar is doing. We're helping them to speak the same language without speaking the same language. We found that when we talk about MLS, even during the Paris conference, there was confusion between CMLS, RESO, potentially MLS system, and the entire organization of an MLS. And so next time round, we want to be in a position to talk about the same thing. And MLS is a lot more than just the system.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, to make it successful, and we have several markets there that have launched an MLS, even organization, according to by the books, right, with all the rules and everything, and are still not very, very successful at this. I think it's going to be the way to attack it is really to be partnering with local entities as much as possible.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Ali, moving on to you. Really, all of the credit is due, or a huge credit at least, is due to you for bringing the International MLS Forum together and building that, and then also building the RESO and CEPI partnership. As a vendor and you're moving forward, and again, you are working with all of these, you know, from the agent perspective and then also with some broader stakeholders. From your perspective, what is going to be needed from their point of view to really want to reach out and adopt RESO standards?
Actually, the important part of that credit goes to, for sure, RESO, especially Sam, with the vision of like, this standard is needed internationally. Yeah. We just did the introduction, so it was nothing. Honestly, like CEPI appreciated the transparency in RESO. Like, it's free, it's open source, right? Yeah. Like, that was something that mattered in Europe, because in Europe, it's all about transparency. You know, that's about that. So RESO brought that value. And we just did the introduction, it was nothing. So basically, the value was there, multi-language was there, like the understanding of like open source was there, and then basically like they grabbed the opportunity, and for sure, like a lot of countries, I believe that now they are adopting RESO as the way that they can actually shape their MLSs. We know that there are a lot of projects funded by public institutions, banks, started to build the MLS in their countries. I'm not talking even about private sectors. I'm talking about channeling like billions of dollars of investment in building what you guys have here. And again, we are taking it for granted because built over 100 years, right? Yeah. Like the fathers of the MLS are not here. Like I'm talking about like before internet. That is a jump start. RESO is a jump start for these countries. They don't need to really go through all of those decades of test, experience, improvement. They don't need that. They have access to Data Dictionary 2.0, right? Right off the bat. That's the value. And how much they have to pay for it? Nothing. Yeah. Right? That's the beauty. So we just did the introduction. The rest was there. The value was there. And I believe that we are going to see billions of dollars of investment, definitely by banks, because they don't have the data. You know, for example, when we are talking about European countries, they don't have the transparent data about the listings. They don't have the right analytics. Where this data can come from, right? From basically MLS. They don't have it because the problem is there. It created actually kind of intentionally sometimes by certain portals. So this can actually solve a lot of problems, and they know that, they are aware of that. I believe that in the next few years, I don't believe it's going to be that long. I'm thinking about 5 years to maximum 10 years. We are going to see most of developed countries, they actually launch their MLS based on RESO.
Great.
Yeah.
That's a really great prediction. Let's hope it happens. So Kathleen, moving on to you. When you adopt the RESO standard, you're translating the data language of real estate, but you and your experience is the literal translation of listing data for brokers and consumers and how a consumer interacts with their agent who speaks a different language. Talk to us about kind of that consumer switch where, as we transition to countries and RESO standard, what does that look like from the consumer and the agent perspective of being able to really be able to guide their consumer and their client through a transaction in another country or in another language?
Oh, okay. Well, it's not easy.
Yeah.
So we have to get out of our own way. And we have to listen to the agent on the other side and understand their process to go to closing. Some of them are quite long. And we also have to understand the differences in the way they're presenting the listing to your client or vice versa, because how we may say something or perceive something is totally different than the way they say and perceive it.
Yeah.
In other countries, we have valuers. In the United States, we have auctioneers. In the United States, that's a dirty word. But over there, it is a common practice of selling.
Yeah.
I also run the only MLS for real estate auctioneers associations in the whole United States. So what I've experienced is every single country and the way they want to get to the sale is completely different.
Yeah.
So when communicating and you're relying on technology, when you're working with technology companies, if you're an association or an MLS, you need to get your ego out of the room. You have a tech person that's brilliant that works with you, but would you get brain surgery if you're from a general practitioner? You wouldn't, right? So when it comes to language translations and it comes to communicating with people from other countries, you need to work with tech companies, and those tech companies will work with your technology people in your institution, and these tech companies that are really committed to the RESO standardization to help RESO move forward with its data library. Like our company, a lot of people don't have MLSs. In fact, like we talked about, they don't want to look at MLSs. They don't want anything, Americans, don't tell me how to run my business. Go to Ireland, Pat will tell you that from the association. I love Pat. But in the end of the day, they're okay with it if you make it so it's culturally accepted for them, and we present it in the RESO standardized way, and then we grow the relationship from there. And those technology companies that are building to RESO standards, and as you as an organization or a brokerage are working with those companies that are becoming very RESO committed, then we are going to actually grow internationally quite faster. It is almost a bottom-up approach, especially when it comes to international.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that answer. Okay, so moving on. So we talked about kind of the transition to get there. Now, this is kind of a creative exercise. So everybody close your eyes and let's talk about this. Let's fast forward 5 to 10 years as your prediction kind of plays out here. And let's say the world is unified on a RESO standard. Starting with you, Kathleen, what does real estate look like? Global real estate look like?
Well, that is a dream come true. It really is, because it serves our global clients efficiently.
Yeah.
We're all very in tune to understanding the data, property data, in the same way, as opposed to constantly trying to figure out different ways to understand things. And it just will move our brokerage's business forward, our market share forward, And it would be a phenomenal accomplishment. But to accomplish that, we have to be united. We have to work together towards that goal.
Yeah, really great answer. Ali, same question.
Yeah, it's about mentorship, honestly. And I think like after lots of talks with Europeans, with like clients from Africa, from Middle East, we can see what they are actually needing, their mentorship. Actually, my hats off to Stellar. They are taking a very good role in that. Like past few webinars, you had participants from a lot of countries. Like you hear that Albania, like Germany, France, like basically they are participating in the webinars that Stellar and CEPID are doing together.
Yeah.
To see that what is MLS, first question, how it can solve their problems. What about RESO and why they should follow RESO and not some, invented proprietary protocols that actually they had plans to get some 2 million euros of funding and create a European protocol. What is this? Like then we have African protocol and I don't know, like Japanese protocol. No, there is no such thing. We have one protocol and that's RESO, and they understood that. Now, taking that basically American basically tag away from RESO is very important. RESO is not American. RESO is international. And that actually sit very good with them. Because now they can see RESO is international. It's not about like Americans. They're trying to impose what they have in their mind to the rest of the world. Okay, that can happen also, but it's not what you can define as a basically American thing or European thing or African thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let me ask from a vendor perspective, because there's a lot of vendors and prop tech companies in the room here. Well, how are you able to scale your business if you know what the standard is in every single country? I mean, I would imagine that pretty much opens the whole entire world to your business, correct?
Exactly. You just need to work with the companies that they are expert in multi-language.
Yeah.
And then basically that's it. The CRM that you guys have, that works actually in France. That works in Germany. The list.
I think it will allow also cross-border transactions easier. I know from the United States, there is a lot of, especially kind of Florida in our case, there's a lot of interest from outside international markets to purchase in Florida and vice versa, right? But within Europe, for example, you have kind of very, very different countries right next to each other, and within like an hour of drive, you could, you may want to buy a house there, right? So it would certainly facilitate that into a way more efficient market.
Yeah.
The challenge I see a little bit here is, of course, and I kind of mentioned this, is the path to adoption, even of the standard, right? And the example I have is, I think it was the Dubai government 2 years ago passed this regulation or law that said, the property can only be listed by a maximum of 3 brokerages, right? So it seems unreal for us, right? But that's how disastrous it was that they felt the need that they need to curb
And that was a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a great thing, right? So there's some good steps towards it. But at the same time, RESO data standards, right now at least, are centered around the concept of exclusive representation on the listing site, right? Mm-hmm. Can you imagine a scenario where, I mean, right now, in many of these international markets, you have websites showing the same property listed 3, 4, 5 times with different prices and different brokerages, right? Absolute chaos. But that's not to say that our model of exclusive representation needs to happen there. So let's say you wanted to facilitate a Dubai website, right?
Yeah.
I could imagine at least one property as a consumer, but having maybe 3 listing brokers next to it, right? Can that be facilitated? I'm not saying it's the right way or the best way, for sure, but I'm saying it may be the first step in path to adoption, ultimately, to certain countries to get to that place, right?
Yeah.
Rather than like turning the entire market around and saying this is the way to do it.
And that's to piggyback off what Kathleen said earlier. I mean, it's the MLS as we know it here is not necessarily what the MLS will look like, or if you even want to call it an MLS, in another country. But the important thing is that RESO standard as the underlying foundation. So,
for sure.
Perfect. So we're wrapping up here. These were some really, really good insights. So I want to give you each a minute or two for some closing thoughts. Mathew, I'll start with you again.
Sure. First of all, I want to kind of commend the RESO leadership to give this enough priority, because it's not just about the mandate of a borderless organization, but it's also the fact that other standards are popping up elsewhere, right? And you can kind of prevent that chaos if you're in the game early on. But ultimately, real estate is local, but the opportunities are global, I think.
Great point. Ali, closing thoughts.
Basically, untapped opportunities. I want to focus on that again and continue with what you just said. I invite all of the vendors and also MLSs to look into the global markets, to invest, to basically find the right opportunities. It's not just about the software. It's about finding opportunities and having plan B, plan C. Like while we have a problem with the, with certain issues here in US, there are a lot of parallel issues available in global markets. So look into that.
Yeah, great point. Kathleen.
United States is amazing. There is a lot of growth and value and market share to be had on the other side of the pond. And by working together to build a proper international RESO library that is concise from the bottom up through the tech companies that are committed to it, and from the US over, we're going to grow this market internationally a lot faster. But going home and just going, that was cool, and then going back and doing what we do every day is not the way to do it.
Yeah.
The best way to do it is sit down with your tech people and go, okay, let's take a hard look at the tech companies that are really committed to this. Let's look at what they're doing and how we can grow our business beyond our borders and improve our business within our borders. And then once you really do that, and again, like I said, get the egos out of the room, and we work together, you not only have your tech people within your organization, you have my tech people, his tech people, everyone's tech people in the audience working for you. So it's really up to you. So I think we got this. That's why we're here today. So let's do it.
Great points by everyone. So I'd be remiss to say that we saw it on the slides earlier. The second International MLS Forum will be in Milan, Italy, October 8th through 9th. In the MLS PropTech Digest, there's some in the back and then also some in the Innovator Showcase across the hall. There's a special discount code in there if you are interested. Everything we talked about today will be discussed there, and not just discussed from a high level perspective like we did, but we are going to be kind of getting our hands dirty and having these conversations. Like we said, there was 33 countries represented at the last one. We expect that number to grow considerably. The trend line is that people know what RESO is. The stakeholders, whether that be the government, the practitioners, the consumers, they want RESO standards. So we really look forward to seeing you all. And let's give a big round of applause for our panelists. Perfect. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.